Hello everyone, what's up? It's me again, Young Master 3, and I'm finally back with yet another movie related video. So yeah, for those of you who probably already know, I've just uploaded a big sort of like a walkthrough for Star Fox Adventure. So if you have seen that one, I hope you enjoy that walkthrough. But that's enough for now, for this at this time, because I'm going to focus on the movie related stuff now in the near future. I only pretty much told you that if you did like that walkthrough, I might consider to make another walkthrough for the next Star Fox games. But yeah, that's for another time. Now this is going to be a an update video, and it's a pretty large one as that at that as well. So I've had a few, actually quite a few VHS tapes that I have not showed you before, and if there's any of these titles that I show you in this video that I have already showed before, I have to apologize because everything's just been so blurry when it comes to my memory and stuff, just because just of that incident with the chicken pox. I'm not really sure how much of that is like the after effect of that, so I'm not really sure how much that's gonna be visible in this video, but whatever. Now for the movies themselves, so I'm gonna start with the VHS tapes, then I'm going to go through the non-horror DVDs, and then the horror DVDs, and then finally the Blu-rays. So yeah, well, let's begin right away. First up, we have a film which I actually already had on DVD, but I thought that this cover was quite interesting, and it's one of those cannibal films called Amazonia, the Catherine Miles story. Some people would probably say this is barely a cannibal film, and I kind of like agree with that. It's like more like a strange, weird jungle adventure, almost more like a drama film, in my personal opinion. So it actually says right here on the back of this that it's actually categorized as a drama film. So that kind of makes sense, because if you just look at this cover, you kind of expect like those typical cannibal films by Umberto Lenzi or Ruggero Deodato, but this is very different from those. So, but this one is pretty fun actually, Amazonia. Then let's see here. Then we have some Asian stuff. This is a film from the early 90s, I believe, and the film is called Dreaming the Reality. Some action stuff from the early 90s looks very interesting. Once again, when it comes to some of those like Chinese or like Hong Kong productions from like the 80s or early 90s, they're usually really fun. So yeah, that's the reason why I picked it up, because I'm not sure if that was ever released on DVD or Blu-ray either. So yeah. Then we have a film which I have seen before, and I think it's one of those almost like a so bad it's good type of films in general. And it's the film called Kill Point, which I have seen before. I have this on DVD as well, but it's like in one of those like million movie box sets or whatever. I mean, I usually call it that because it's like included in one of those really large box sets. So, but this is the VHS tape. There's another cover art for this VHS, which I really want to have instead, but this is still cool. So this one has Leo Fong and Cameron Mitchell in it, so that's actually pretty fun. So yeah, Kill Point. Pretty fun, stupid film. Then we have, this is a Swedish release, or like of the Swedish title of the film, Hour of the Assassin. I don't think this was ever released on DVD or Blu-ray either. That's what I do when I pick up VHS tapes in general. I look for titles that have never been released on any other format. But another reason why I picked this one up is because this is directed by the guy who directed the first Anaconda film, and he also directed the first Sniper film with the Tom Berenger, and I do like both of those films, even though Anaconda is sort of like a weird, sort of like a so bad it's good type of film, to be honest, but it's a fun film in general. But this one I've never seen before, so really looking forward to see this one. So yeah, Hour of the Assassin. Then we have yet another one with the Swedish title on the front. This one I know for a certainty that this was released on DVD like long ago. I think it was early 2000s, and I just assume the that DVD is like long gone out of print, and it usually goes for stupid money. But if I ever find the DVD, I'll definitely pick it up. So, but this film is called Quiet Cool, from the mid 80s, I believe. Yeah, 1986. Quite cool. Seems like a really fun and cool action film. Sorry, that was stupid. But yeah, quite cool. Now let's see here. Then we have a film which I have seen before, and this one is another one of those that I've been looking for like ages on DVD. I think it had an official DVD release, but I think that's kind of tricky to get a hold of. So I found this VHS tape of the film, so I might as well, at least it's something. And the film is called Defiance, from the late 70s, early 80s. And this one has John Michael Vincent in it. He's like the main character right here on the front cover. This is sort of like a vigilante type film, because it's basically about John Michael Vincent's character like getting back from some sort of like military service, I believe, and he goes to this neighborhood which is just crawling with like criminals and like gangs and stuff. So it's pretty much up to him and some of the local civilians to stand up for themselves against this gang, basically. So really entertaining vigilante type film. I really like this one. This one is also directed by John Flynn, who directed Brain Scan, so very different film. But this one also kind of reminded me of Rolling Thunder, which was also directed by John Flynn. So if you like those type of like revenge films in general, go check these ones out, especially Defiance. I think this is probably one of the best films directed by John Flynn. So yeah, Defiance. Let's see if we can actually pick that up. Yeah, Defiance. Yeah. Then let's see here. The next one is a VHS tape of a Bruce Lee film called Game of Death, which I'm not sure if I had that on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, but I just thought the cover art looked really cool and really fun, so that's the reason why I picked it up, and it was very cheap as well, so yeah. And then let's see here, then we have another one which has the Swedish title on the front, but the original title for this one is Primary Target, like some sort of like Vietnam action type film from the 80s. I'm not sure, but I kind of get like Filipino type vibes from this one, like it was probably shot in the Philippines. That's usually the case when I look for some films. Whenever they take place in the Philippines, you know you're going to be in for some really fun action-filled adventure in general. So, yeah, Primary Target. Now let's see here. Then we have yet another one in sort of like the same category, I believe. This one is called Battle Rats. And according to the back of this one, this came out in the late 80s. And once again, this cover art is really cool in my personal opinion. So yeah, Battle Rats. Now let's see here. Then we have yet another film which I think might have had a release, like DVD release, like long time ago. Unfortunately, that's just like like I said, with Quite Cool. That's also a film that is really hard to come across. But this one is really entertaining. So if you ever find this on any format, go check it out. This is the film called Trapper County War. Such an action-filled film, and it's like sort of like a similar thing. Like it's like with rednecks, like rednecks is sort of like exploitation in a way, but really action-filled film. And you also have Don Swayze in this film, which is quite fun. I do believe it was also Ernie Hudson, right? It doesn't say on the back for some reason. Don Swayze, R.G. Armstrong, yeah, Ernie Hudson, yeah. So yeah, this one is really entertaining. This was directed by Worth Keeter, who directed, what's that film called again? The Order of the Black Eagle, I believe, which is actually a pretty fun, so bad it's good film as well. But this one is just really entertaining in general. So yeah, Trapper County War. So yeah, County War, not country, County War. I'm not sure why I said that. And then the last one, I already had this on Blu-ray, but this cover art just screamed like this is just such an amazing cover art. But Raw Force, just look at that amazing cover art. I used to really love that. I've never seen the film myself yet, so I actually might watch this VHS tape before I watch the Blu-ray, but just to see what it's all about. But this one also has Cameron Mitchell in it, so yeah, there you go. That's all the VHS tapes I picked up. So now we continue with the DVDs, or like the non-horror DVDs. So the first one I picked up was a film called U.S. SEALs, some early 2000s action film about the American military who are doing some mission and stuff. I also picked up the sequel. I have no idea where I put it, so not really sure if that's going to show up in this update video, but yeah, U.S. SEALs. Let's see, that's that one. And then we have some... It looks like some weird, like sword and sorcery type film, but it looked really interesting in general. So, and this film is called Kull the Conqueror, right there. Yeah, it looks really fun. Then we have once more some Filipino action type films, I believe. The first one being the film called Tough to Kill. apparently directed by Joe D'Amato. I didn't really know that from before, so you never know with that guy in general. But yeah, Tough to Kill, once again, really cool looking cover art right there. So yeah. Then we continue with the same type of content. So this film is called Vietnam Warrior. I'm not really sure if that's the original title of the film, because I do believe it's is it this one or the other one? No, I think this is actually the one that I'm thinking of. It says it's the film. The film is directed by Victor Sears, but I think I read somewhere that this is a Garfield Ho film. But yeah, keep that in mind. So when you see this film, there's probably going to be some copy and paste type of footage for this one. So yeah, Vietnam Warrior. And then we have a film called Final Reprisal with Gary Daniels. I believe this is probably one of his earliest roles. Now this one I do believe is this is a Filipino production, I believe. And yeah, what can I say about that? I really like the cover art. It's just a shame that this stupid logo down here is just taking up so much space of the. But I do believe it's one of those. Yeah, you can just switch the cover art so you get it without that one whenever. I mean, the reason why I haven't done that before is because it's still a new and sealed. So yeah. Then we have a film which is kind of a blind buy, but yeah, I saw that James Coburn is apparently in this one and Raquel Welch as well, so that was quite interesting. The film is called The Last of the Sheila, right there, from the Warner Archive Collection. Yeah. Warner Archive Collection. Then we have some thriller film with the Jeff Fahey, I believe. This has to be from the 90s, right? It does not say on the back for some reason, but the film is called Time Served. Apparently some Dutch release, you can tell that by just looking at that 12 logo down there. But yeah, Time Served, never seen before, but I think Jeff Fahey is one of those people that show up in some of those like B films in general, but they're pretty fun in general sometimes, so yeah. Then we have the second one that I was talking about before, US Seals 2. Not really sure if they made a third one, not sure. I mean, it kind of depends on if I like these first two, I might consider to see if there's a third one. But yeah, we'll see. US Seals 2. Then we have a Charles Bronson film. Once again, James Coburn shows up in this one as well. That's interesting. Hard Times. Not sure if that's the original title or not, but this is a film that's been pretty difficult to get a hold of from time to time, so that's another reason why I picked it up. And I do like both Bronson and James Coburn in general, so yeah, Hard Times. Then we have a parody film, you could say, called The Silence of the Hams with Dom DeLuise. That's the reason why I picked it up. I mean, the whole parody thing of like who came up with that title, Silence of the Hams. And Dom DeLuise apparently, I think he's the main character in this one. I'm not really sure. It also has Billy Zane in it as well, so that's interesting. So yeah, when did this come out, by the way? It must have been like 94 or something. 93, so it's like only like 1 or 2 years after the original Silence of the Lambs, so yeah. Then we have a double pack or double bill with films called Hit Me and Madame. This is kind of a blind buy. This was dirt cheap as well, so that's another reason I picked it up. Apparently Madame has Joe Estevez in it, so yeah, that can be either it can be really so bad it's good, or it can just be trash, you never know. Then we have some I think this is some sort of like Bollywood production thing. This is kind of like a blind buy, to be honest, but Shulay. I saw that the disc was a little bit scratchy, so I just figured out, well, I'm just gonna try it in the player and see if it works. And when I shoved in the disc, there was like a in the title menu you could pick if you like pick a song. So it's sort of like a weird like musical action whatever. It looks very strange in general if you just kind of look at the main like title or like the title menu, whatever. So Shulay. Then we have a film which I'm not sure, I think this was actually released on Blu-ray not too long ago by, was it 101 Films or was it 88 Films? I don't really remember, but I don't think I'm gonna need to like upgrade this one because yeah, I mean, I'm just glad I have the film itself. So but this is the film called Damnation Alley. So it looks like some sort of like post-apocalyptic type deal. This one also has Jan Michael Vincent in it, so yeah. Then I picked up this one. I've only heard really stupid and bad things about this one, but I thought, well, it can be a so bad it's good type of film. That's what I hope for. Barbed Wire with Pamela Anderson. Yeah. Then we have a 90s thriller, I believe, called Perfect Victim. Kind of blind buy, but I kind of like some of those 90s thrillers in general, so yeah, I decided to pick it up. Then we have a early 2000s action film. Kind of picked it up because it looked like it was a pretty fun title as well to it as well. So Shadow Fury. Yeah, and you can tell it's a really old release just depending on that old 18 logo, the UK logo right there. So Shadow Fury, yeah. Then the last one for this stack is a film called Codename Dancer. Some sort of made-for-TV film with Kate Capshaw in it. So, yeah. So for this next stack, I'm not really sure if I've showed you these films before, so just keep that in mind when I show these films. So the first one in this one is a film called Busting with Elliot Gould and Robert Blake in it, right there. So pretty cool looking cover art for being a DVD in my personal opinion, so yeah. Then we have a Dolph Lundgren film called Bridge of Dragons from the 90s. Yeah, could be interesting. I mean, I think this is kind of tricky to get a hold of as well, so I got it for a really nice price as well, so that's another reason why I picked it up, so yeah. Then we have a David A. Pryor film that I didn't even know this one had a DVD release, so just when I saw this for sale, I thought, well, I need to get that in the collection, because I have quite a lot of David A. Pryor films at this point. There's one which seems to be impossible to get a hold of, and that's the Lock and Load, I think it was called, from the early 90s. That just seems to be impossible to get a hold of. But this is the film called Center of the Web. And this one has Tony Curtis, Robert Davi, Charlene Tilton, Bo Hopkins, Charles Napier, and Ted Pryor in it. So pretty interesting cast right there. For some weird reason, I know that's Tony Curtis, but just looking at that like really fast, I used to assume that was Lance Henriksen. Now let's see here. Then we have a made-for-TV film with Cheryl Ladd called The Other Side of Love. This is kind of a blind buy. It was dirt cheap, so I thought, well, why not? Then we have a film with Billy D. Williams. Just based on this cover art, it looks like a weird slasher type film, but apparently it's more of a drama thriller. But the film is called The Killer Next Door. And I do believe this is from the late 90s, I believe, so yeah. Then we have a film with Gary Busey called Act of Piracy. Some sort of 80s action film. I believe it's from 1988 or something. I can be totally wrong about that one, but really fun looking cover art with like Gary Busey there on the front cover, so yeah, could be fun. Then we have an 80s sort of like comedy film, I believe, with Kiefer Sutherland, and the movie is called Crazy Moon. Yeah. And then the last one for this stack is yet another film with Robert Davi in it, and this is the film called The Bad Pack, another type of action war type film, I believe. So yeah, looks quite interesting. I mean, sorry for just repeating myself over and over again, but that's just what I feel when I picked up films. I picked them up because they get my interest. So yeah, The Bad Pack. Then we continue with the next stack, and the first one in this stack is Crazy in Alabama, with apparently this is directed by Antonio Banderas. So and I think this was the first film he directed. I'm not really sure if he's directed anything else after this one, but that's the biggest reason why I decided to pick it up in general. So yeah, Crazy in Alabama. Then we have a film which, this is yet another film that's been really tricky to get a hold of, but this is a film from the early 80s with Sean Penn and Nicolas Cage. And this is the film called Racing with the Moon. Right there. Yeah. Then we have a film which I've seen 2 or 3 times. Every time I watch it, I like it a little bit more. And it's the 90s film called Casper. Or like Casper the Friendly Ghost. I'm not really sure if that's the original title or not, but really fun 90s film in general. Yeah, Casper. Then the next 2 films, these are just really tricky to get a hold of. I kind of paid, it was so like, I think I probably paid way too much for these 2, but whatever. I never see them for sale anywhere. so I decided why not. And the first one I picked up right here that are one of these really difficult ones to get a hold of is the film called Loose Cannons with Gene Hackman and Dan Aykroyd. This is actually directed by Bob Clark, so that's just yet another reason why I picked it up. So yeah, some sort of like body cop type of comedy, I believe. Yeah, has to be something like that. Then we have that other one, which is quite difficult to get a hold of, and it's a film called Up the Academy. Some sort of a comedy film from the early 80s with Ralph Macchio. I can never pronounce his name, so sorry for that. Then we have an Arnie film called The Sixth Day. Some sci-fi stuff from the early 2000s, so never seen it before, but yeah. Then we have another one, which this has to be early 2000s as well. Another type of sci-fi film, I believe. Clock Stoppers. Yeah, kind of a blind buy, to be honest. And we have a film with Eric Roberts in it, and this is the film called Hitman's Run. I didn't really realize this before I bought the film, but apparently it's directed by Mark L. Lester, so yeah, that's a plus. Then we have a film which I'm not really sure if this is the original title or not. This could be a Godfrey Ho film, I'm not really sure, but Ninja Kids, Kiss of Death. It's called Ninja Kids, but where are the kids on the front cover? They're lying. Then we have a film called A Mission to Kill. Kind of a blind buy, but looked quite interesting with the guns there on the front cover, so yeah. Then we have a thriller film with Charlize Theron and Kevin Bacon. Apparently Courtney Love is also in this one, that's quite interesting. Trapped. Very boring cover art, but that's what you get when you buy some of those early 2000s, late 90s films in general, so... but yeah, I mean, I do like some of the actors in that one, so that's going to be interesting. Then we have a film called Spot. I'm not sure if that's the original title or not, but I think it's just called Spot actually. Sometimes it says that on the front, like on the back, if it's called that or not. Spot Run, I believe, is the original title for this one. So this is early 2000s film. It looks way more like a 90s or 80s film to me, just based on the cover art. But yeah, who knows. Then we have yet another film, which this is also really stupidly like difficult to get a hold of, but I found it for a really nice price, and I thought, well, I need to have most of the films with John Candy in them, so I mean, I really need to get a hold of those. But this is the film called Nothing But Trouble, right there. Apparently directed by Dan Aykroyd himself, so that's interesting. Then we have a film called Drop Dead Fred with Phoebe Cates. Never seen before, but I heard it's supposed to be a pretty darn funny comedy film, so yeah. Then we have a, this is a collection, like Sonny Chiba collection volume 2. I'm not really sure what volume 1 is all about. I've never really seen that for sale anywhere, but these are the films Golgo 13, The Bullet Train, and G.I. Samurai. I'm not sure if Bullet Train, if that's like the original, because I know there was like a film released like a couple of years ago that was called Bullet Train as well, so I'm not really sure if that's like a remake of this one or if it just happens to be like the same title. I'm not really sure, but yeah, really looking forward to see these films, because usually Sonny Chiba shows up in really entertaining action films in general, so yeah. Then we have a double pack with the two films, the films being Street Gun and Warhead. Warhead I already had before, but I never had Street Gun before, so that's the reason why I picked it up, and that was like the only way I could find this one in this double pack, so yeah, Street Gun and Warhead. Then we have a 90s classic, I think it's considered a classic at this point, that I've never seen before, but yeah, The Witches. Maybe this should have been the horror section, maybe not, I'm not really sure. I kind of get some weird Tim Burton vibes just looking at this front cover, but yeah, I can be totally wrong about that. Then we have a film which I've never seen before, and this looks very interesting. I've heard some mixed things about it, but the film is called Pathfinder: Legend of the Ghost Warrior, right there. And apparently it says extended edition. I don't really know what that means, if there's like extra footage or whatever, but yeah, Pathfinder. Then we have a film by Peter Jackson. This is, let's see, when did this come out? Of course, they never tell you when they're released. Yeah, whatever. This film is called Heavenly Creatures. Right there. Um, from the Academy Award-winning director of Lord of the Rings. So this DVD probably came out right after those. So yeah, Heavenly Creatures. Not really sure what that's all about. I think it's a drama film. Then we have some Australian stuff, I believe. This is kind of a blind buy, but I thought, well, it's an older, like 90s, early 90s, late 80s film, so I thought, well, why not? This film is called The Big Steal. Yeah. And then we have a film called Son-in-Law, apparently with Pauly Shore, which I've heard some really mixed things about his acting or whatever. But I'm not really sure why. If that's Pauly Shore on the front cover, he looks a whole lot more like what's that guy called? Freddie Prinze Jr. He looks a whole lot like him on that front cover. If that's Pauly Shore, so I just wanted to say that. Then we have a film called The Maker from the late 90s, some sort of action film, I believe. Then the last one for this stack is a film called The Big Town from the 80s with Matt Dillon and Tommy Lee Jones. So yeah, there you go. Let's see, I couldn't pause. Now let's continue with the next stack. The first one in this stack is a film called Danger Diabolik, and this is directed by Mario Bava actually. He was probably most known for his horror films, but this is one of his films that I didn't have in the collection before, so I decided to pick it up. Then we have a film from the 60s called Blow Up. Yeah. And then we have a Western film from the 70s, mid-70s called Bite the Bullet with Candice Bergen and Gene Hackman. And once again, James Coburn seems to follow me in this update video. Maybe it's just this ghost that is like following me. Then we have yet another Western type film. This is probably more of a Western like mystery, I believe. This film is called Lone Star with Matthew McConaughey and what's his name, Chris Christopherson as well. So yeah, right there. Then we have a 70s crime film, I believe. Yeah, crime film. The Grissom Gang, right there. Kind of like some of those like crime films from the 70s as well. Then we have a comedy film from the late 80s with Tom Selleck called Her Alibi. Right there, once again, Archive Warner collection, so yeah. Then we have a film with James Spader and Susan Sarandon in it, and this is from the early 90s, I believe. This film is called White Palace. Right there, some sort of, looks like some really sleazy stuff if I just looked on the front cover. Then I'm not sure if I had this one before or not, but it just looks like a totally bonkers type of film, like sort of like a weird Mad Max film. But this is the film called Yellow Hair and the Fortress of Gold. Looks really strange. Then we have this one, which I have seen before. I had no idea this was ever released on DVD up until I saw this for sale. So I thought, well, why not? This one also has Sam Jones in it, and the film is called Silent Assassins. So yeah, I usually just pick up anything that Linda Blair's been in general, because I think she should be in more films. I mean, let's be honest. Then we have yet another Western film, a later one at that. I think this is from the mid-90s or something. This one has Rob Lowe, Bill Paxton, and Randy Travis in it, and this is the film called Frank and Jesse. Yeah. Then we have a film, this one I've been looking for ages, and I never seem to find it. I mean, I know there was a Blu-ray release, but I think that's like long gone out of print at this point. But this is the film called The Grave. Now this one has Craig Sheffer in it as well as Anthony Michael Hall and Eric Roberts. So that's another reason I picked it up. I'm gonna say this: if you want to watch this film, you might as well just try to get a hold of the Blu-ray, because this release is a really strange one, because the picture is like cropped in a really strange way. So like most of the TV screen is just black. So yeah, I'm not really sure if it was just like something wrong with my TV or something, but that's just what happens when I like just shoved it into the player. I'm not seeing the film myself yet. I just kind of try to like look through like films if I buy them secondhand sometimes, if it's like scratch or whatever. But yeah, look for the Blu-ray if you're interested in this one, and kind of avoid this one unless you are really desperate to find it, like I was. So yeah. Then we have a film called The McMasters, yet another Western film. I might have had this before, I'm not very sure, but I kind of picked it up because it's a newer like Studio S release, so yeah. Then we have a film which, once again, I think I might have had this one before. The Grand Duel with Leaf and Cleef, right there. And I do collect those retro films, like, you know, that's the number 44, so I have all of those in the collection at this point, I believe. So that's the biggest reason why I picked this one up to begin with. The same thing goes for this next film, which I did not have this one before. Hangmen Also Die. Once again, the retro film, whatever. A film by Fritz Lang, apparently. So yeah. Then we have a film which apparently, according to like the front of this DVD, this was deemed as the best movie in history, according to some weird voting stuff from 2022. Let's see. Jean Dielman, 23, Quai de Commence, 1080 Bruxelles. I probably butchered the title, so I'm just gonna look if this actually has an English title or not. It does not have that, so yeah, do with that what you will. Then we have this one. This is a strange looking, like, this is a very strange release. This film is called Human Highway. I have no idea what this is about, but you can probably see there it's like a really strange looking release. And the disc is actually inside of that tiny little folder right there. So very, I've never seen a release like this before. So yeah, sort of like just like in a paper sleeve. Then we have a film which kind of reminded me of the Condemned in a certain degree, just by looking at the front cover. But the Eliminator, sort of like a fight to the death type film. I really like those type of films in general. I've heard some really stupid and like bad things about this one, but I like the concept in general, so that's the reason why I picked it up. Then we have a film called Operation Pacific, some sort of like World War II film with John Wayne. So yeah, there you go. Then we have a film called The Hunter, which is a terrible title, because I believe there's at least like 3 or 4 other films with this exact same title, but this is the one with Steve McQueen, and I believe this was released probably just like 1 or 2 years before he passed away, actually, so it might have been one of his last films. Well, it actually says here on the bag, Steve McQueen's last film, so this was the last film apparently appeared according to the back of this DVD, so yeah, The Hunter. Then we have a film called Absence of Malice from the early 80s with Sally Field and Paul Newman in it, so yeah, like both of those actors. Now this one I have seen before, but that was like maybe 7 or 8 years ago at this point, it seems like. And I remember really liking this one. It's sort of like stupid and retarded in a certain way, but there's so many scenes that really cracked me up. School Spirit. Yeah, so if you like those wacky type of 80s like comedy films in general, go check this one out. This really cracked me up. Yeah, School Spirit. Then we have a film which I've heard is supposed to be like sort of like a so bad it's good type of film. I mean, I've seen footage of this film like online and it looks really stupid and retarded, but Perfect with Jamie Lee Curtis and John Travolta. Yeah, it's an 80s film, so that's another reason why I picked it up. Now, the next one, like Perfect, that's a pretty ridiculous film to get a hold of as well. The same goes for this one. And I believe this is the only film that was ever directed by Bill Murray. And the film is called Quick Change, right there. So yeah, this one also has Randy Quaid in it, I believe. Randy Quaid and Gina Davis. Then we have a film which I didn't even know. Apparently this is some sort of like remake, so I might as well try to get a hold of the original one as well. But Night and the City with Robert De Niro. So yeah, 80s film. Like I said before, I didn't know this was a remake, so I need to get a hold of the original one as well. So yeah, Night and the City. So I've been talking for almost like 35 minutes now, so I kind of need to speed it up a little bit. Now the first one in this little stack right here is a film called The Last Chapter. And apparently this was probably more of a miniseries because it says it's like 200 minutes. So I think it's basically like part 1 and part 2 with Michael Ironside. So that's another reason why I picked it up. So yeah, some sort of biker miniseries. Then we have another film which is quite stupidly hard to come across, but I've heard some really good things about this one. Deep Cover, right there, with the Lawrence Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum in it. So yeah. Then we have this one. I've always wanted to see this one. I just assumed it never was released on DVD or Blu-ray anyway. But when I found this this Scandinavian release or whatever, I was really surprised because I could have swore this was never released over here at all. But this is the film called Prison Heat. So yeah, yet another women in prison film that I got hold of in my collection. So yeah, could be fun. Then we have a early 2000s made-for-TV thriller film, which is called Borderline. This one has Gina Gershon in it and Michael Biehn. I can never pronounce her name, but I think she's sort of like an underrated actress in general. So yeah, Borderline. Then we have a film which I know a friend of mine is gonna laugh his ass off about because he really likes the Planet of the Apes films and like monkey related films in general. So this film is called Funky Monkey. This looks so stupid, but I had to pick it up. Then we have a film which I'm not sure if this was the very first film that Jim Carrey appeared in. It could be, I'm not really sure, but one of his first roles. But this film is called Copper Mountain, and I've heard some really terrible things about this one, but I never really take those things for granted because sometimes I've ended up really liking some films that have really terrible reputations. So, but yeah, Copper Mountain surprisingly only clocks in like at 1 hour, so this is just 1 hour long. That's very strange. So yeah, that's enough for all of the non-horror titles. Now I do believe we get to the horror titles. Let's just take a look. Yeah, now we go to the horror titles. So first up we have a film called The Corpse of Anna Fritz. Anna Fritz. Looks like some Aftermath type thing by that Spanish director. This is also a Spanish film apparently, so yeah, looks really messed up. Then we have a film which is kind of a blind buy, but I thought the premise sounded quite interesting. So 100 Feet, right there. And then we have a film, sort of like a creature feature, I believe, called Eyes of the Woods. I really like the look of that monster. If that monster ever shows up in the film, that's going to be really interesting. So yeah, Eyes of the Woods. Then we have a film which is called American Nightmare, and this should not be confused with the 80s slasher film. This is from the early 2000s, and yeah, I picked it up because it's a slasher film. I kind of like slasher films in general, so that's my sort of like one of my favorite subgenres within the horror genre in general. So yeah, American Nightmare. Then we have this one. I'm not really sure. The original title for this one is Zombies, Zombies, Zombies. But apparently it's also known as Strippers vs. Zombies, so looks like some really low budget schlock, stupid fun probably, so yeah, that's the reason I picked it up. Then we have this one. I've always been fascinated by the title of this, and yeah, that's the reason why I picked it up in the first place. Killer Mermaid. Just imagine that, a film about a killer mermaid. That sounds hilarious and really fun to me, so yeah. Then we have this one. Once again, this is a film that I've heard really stupid things about, but apparently this has Stephen Jeffries in it. And this film is called Mr. Hush. So, yeah. Could be bad, could be good, you never know. Heard some terrible things about it, but yeah, I'm going to judge for myself. Then we have a film called Forest of the Damned. And I read somewhere, I'm not really sure if this was the one that... I think Tom Savini was involved with this somehow. I can be totally wrong about this, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, Forest of the Damned. Then we have a film from... Just by the look of this front cover, it kind of looks like a late 90s, early 2000s like horror film, but apparently it's from the like 60s or 70s, I believe. And this film is called Satanic. Right there. yeah, not really sure if I could show all of that on YouTube, but yeah, hey, I ho. Then we have a sequel to a film which I actually enjoyed quite a bit. This is the film called Gator Bait 2, Cajun Justice. And apparently they couldn't get the original actress back because sadly she passed away before this one was even made. So that's a little bit unfortunate because I think she did a really amazing job with that one. But I heard this is supposed to be weaker, but then again I thought for myself, well, I need to get hold of the second one anyway. Then we have a film called Baba Yaga. This is released by Blue Underground. Carol Baker's in this one, so that could be cool. Then we have a film which this was so scratched up like the disc, so I thought for myself, well, that's not gonna work in the player, but surprisingly it did. And this is the film called Ghost Shark, with like a weird like holographic like cover right there, and then you have like the original, yeah, right, you can probably see that. Apparently this one also has Sean C. Phillips in it, the cool dude from YouTube, so that was quite interesting to see, so we're looking forward to see this one, so yeah. Then we have a, I believe this is actually a German film. Yeah, German with English subtitles. I mean, it could be Austrian as well, so I'm not really sure, but this is the film called Blood Glacier. Glacier, probably butcher the pronunciation right there, but yeah, whatever. Then we have a film called I Am Not a Serial Killer. Not really heard anything. Apparently this has Christopher Lloyd in it. Seems very interesting though, so yeah, I Am Not a Serial Killer. Then we have a film called Lasso. This is kind of a blind buy. I really don't like the newer look of those UK releases. I really like the older ones. I think they looked way more cooler. I mean, that's just stupid to just comment on that because it's just the film itself that is the most important thing. But just like, I don't really like the newer one or the newer 15, 18 logo. Then we have this one. I have seen this one before. I have the previous two films. I really like the first one. I think that's really fun, stupid, like slasher film. The second one was not very good, and this one was not good at all. But I thought for myself that was dirt cheap, and yeah, might change my opinion if I ever watch this one. So, Scarecrow Gone Wild. Like I said before, the first one is actually pretty fun. Second one, whatever, and third one I did not care for about, but it was dirt cheap, so I thought why not? Might give it another chance. Then we have this one, which apparently this is supposed to be very disturbing because it says on the front cover, most definitely not a film for the squeamish, and the film is called Resurrection County. Yeah, apparently some weird exploitation type film from what I've heard, so yeah. Then we have a film called Bachelor Party Massacre. Right there. Yeah, probably some stupid slasher stuff, so yeah. Then we have a film called Monster, and this one was, I believe, made by the Asylum, so you probably know what you're in for, probably some stupid CG bullshit. But yeah, I kind of like some of those. Sometimes they're like really, really fun because of how stupid they are, and sometimes they're just flat out bad. But yeah, the front cover is actually pretty cool, so I think it's just so stupid because there's a warning right here that says, this film is not fictional, it is a documentation. The footage you will see is graphic and disturbing, but it is real. I call bullshit on that. Just saying that. Oh, let's continue with the next stack. The first one in this stack is a film called How to Make a Monster, which I do believe I might have had in like some double pack before, but I have seen the remake for this one, which came out like in the early 2000s, I believe, and I didn't really care too much for this one, but for that one. But this one is from like the 50s, I believe. Could be totally wrong about that. Maybe 60s, I'm not really sure. But yeah, I'm really getting more and more into those monster films from the 50s and 60s in general. So yeah. Then we have a film which I have seen before, and I believe this is by Burt I. Gordon. And this is the film called The Spider. I think it's known as something else as well. But this is actually a really fun, like goofy little like monster, like creature feature film in general. So yeah, if you like those type of films, go check this one out. The Spider, like I said before, I think it's known as something else as well, so keep that in mind. Then we have yet more oldies right here. Yeah, it never says when they were released, so that's stupid. But this film is called The Day the World Ended. I believe I have a similar film with the same author, almost the same title. But I really like the look on that weird looking monster there on the back right there. Kind of looks like Toxic Avenger a little bit. Yeah, the day the world ended. Let's see here. Then we have a sequel to a film, which I think the first one is actually pretty fun. This second one I don't care for too much, but I thought for myself, well, might need to rewatch it. And it's the film Devil in the Flesh 2, right there. So you do get some eye candy at least, so I can say that. Then we have a film which I've heard really stupid things about, but also at the same time I kind of like skimmed through this a little bit because I thought the disc looked a little bit suspicious, but it seems like it's a really fun, like low budget film in general. So Hammerhead, right there. So yeah. And then we have a film which was released in the late 2000s, I believe. And this has probably been like, they've made so many films out of this, I believe. But yeah, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is from 2009, I believe. 2008, according to the back of this DVD. So yeah. Then we have this one. I actually expected this to be way more disturbing than it ended up being, but I still think it's a really fascinating and interesting film in general. But excuse my French for this one. Dans ma peau, which basically translates to In My Skin. So this is from the early 2000s and released by Tartan DVD. I kind of like Tartan in general. You rarely see those for sale in general these days. So yeah. Then we have a is this a double pack? Yeah, I didn't even notice that, I think, when I picked this one up. But film or films that has Christopher Lee and Klaus Kinski in them. Monster of London City and Secret of the Red Orchid. Up there, so yeah. Then we have this one. Apparently this one is really stupidly hard to come across, but I did find it, and I thought for myself, well, probably need to get a hold of it, because there were some issues with the rights or something to the first film that they had no. It was kind of like pulled from production or whatever, some strange thing like that. But Driving Collection, which has Savage Water and Death by Invitation. Now Savage Water was the one that was like kind of pulled from. I mean, that's the film that you probably won't get a hold of anyway, because this is the release which included that one. The other one which had Death by Invitation, I think was, let's see, what's the other one? I think I actually have that one right over here. Death by Invitation. What's the other one? The other one was The Dungeon of Hyrule, I think, is the other one, which is probably more commonly seen. So yeah, really looking forward to see these films, especially Savage Water. I think it's just probably going to end up to be really bad in general, but I mean, at least I have the film in my collection, so that's good. Then we have a film called Donkey Punch. I've actually heard this is more of like a thriller, like crime film, but I just ended up in this section of the video. But yeah, Donkey Punch. Then we have a early 2000s clown film called Hellbreeder, right there. Really cool looking cover art, but that's just probably gonna be shit just because of that. Then we have a film called Bundy, A Legacy of Evil, and I have no idea when this came out, but you should not confuse this one with the early 2000s one. That's actually a pretty fun film as well. Maybe not fun, but it's a pretty good film, like serial killer film in general, the early 2000s one. I have no idea when this was released, but I mean, I kind of pick up anything serial killer stuff. Sometimes they can be really stupidly bad, and sometimes they can be really good. Just avoid Ulai Lommel's serial killer films and you'll be good. Then we have a film called Evil Underground. I think the original title for this one is The Butterverse, I believe. I have seen this one before, didn't care too much for it, and I think I gave it away to some friend or something, or maybe I sold it, I'm not for sure, but I thought by myself, well, need to give it another chance. So, and I found this for a really good price, so yeah, I thought, why not? Then we have a film called Scar, which should not be confused with that other film called Scar, which came out like maybe 1 or 2 years after this one. I believe this one came out in 2005, so that was 1 or 2 years prior to that other film called Scar. Apparently this one has Steve Wallace in it, so that's another reason why I picked it up. So yeah, Scar. Then we have another stack right over here. First one in this stack is a film called Serum. I've heard some stupid things about this one, but anything with syringes in a weird way is just really like, I mean, I pick up anything like hospital or like asylum related like horror films in general. Maybe it's just because I've spent so much time in hospital in my life, so I'm not really sure if that's the macabre reality of that. But yeah, Serum. Then we have a film which I might have showed you before, but this is the film called Colin. Not sure if this is some sort of like zombie or vampire type film. It says zombie on the back, so I'm not really sure. So yeah, Colin. Now then we have a double pack again, and the films included in this one is Project Vampire and The Dreaded. Now Project Vampire I had before, but I never had The Dreaded before, so that's the reason why I picked it up. So yeah. Then we have a film which I have seen before, and I remember not really caring too much about it, but once again, it's a film I probably need to give another chance. So, and this is the film called Satan's Cheerleaders. Yeah, saw this years ago. I remember being pretty stupid, but yeah, whatever. Then we have a film. This might be more of a crime thriller, so yeah, keep that in mind. But Kill Cruise. Apparently, this I think this is like a German production, I believe, so that could be interesting. So yeah, Kill Cruise. Then we have a film which I actually thought I had in the collection before, but apparently I didn't. The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. I believe this is a Hammer film. Yeah, Hammer film production, so yeah. Yeah, so that could be interesting. So yeah, just completely lost track there. Then we have a film called Shelf Life, or also known as Subhuman, according to this front cover. Always been fascinated by this front cover. I kind of like that. So yeah, we'll see if that's good or not. Then we have this one. I've heard some stupid things about the first one, and I've heard some really even worse things about this sequel. And this is directed by David Dicatu. So you never know with that guy. But this is the film called Legend of the Mummy 2. Have yet to see the first one, but yeah, we'll see how bad those are. Then we have some full moon stuff, at least according to the front of this, because it says Charles Band on front cover. Descendant Evil Dead 2. So I'm not sure if this is a sequel or if it's just like some weird standalone stuff. I'm not really sure, but yeah, whatever. Could be interesting. Then we have yet another film which I have seen before, and I remember this being actually quite interesting and a pretty interesting like concept. This has been done a few times after this one now, I believe, because they made the Willy's Wonderland and that Freddy film. What was it called? The Five Nights at Freddy's. I believe both of those came out after this one. But yeah, the Banana Splits movie, which I thought was pretty fun and pretty hilarious. So yeah. Then we have a film which is kind of like a blind buy. I'm gonna be honest with you. I picked it up because of the front cover. Days of Darkness. Right there. Yeah. And then we have another film which I've been looking for ages, and I finally found it. This is an older film from the 30s called Vampyr, or Vampire. I'm not really sure. I think this is a German film. So yeah, I've seen some like images, like footage from this one, and it looks very atmospheric. So yeah, really looking forward to see that one. Then we have a film which I have seen before, and this was way more of an action film than a straightforward horror film in my personal opinion, but it's still pretty fun. And it's a film called Flying Virus, and this is also, it's known as something else as well. I think it's known as Killer Bus as well. But this one has Gabrielle Anwar, Rutger Hauer, and Craig Sheffer in it. So yeah, pretty interesting cast right there. So yeah, I can actually recommend that one. It's actually a pretty funny, stupid film. Then we have a film with Jennifer Tilly and Judd Nelson in it called Caretaker. Apparently this is more of a comedy than a straightforward horror film, I believe. So at least that's what I've heard. So yeah. Then we have a film called Knock Knock. I think there's actually at least 2 or 3 other films with the exact same title. So I have no idea when this came out. According to this back of this DVD, it came out in 2006. So yeah. So now we've finally reached the Blu-ray section of this video, and I apologize that I've been talking for such a long time, but that's just what it happens sometimes. But yeah, first up we have the film called House of the Long Shadows, which has Peter Cushing, Vincent Price, Christopher Lee, and John Carradine in it. What a cast! Apparently some sort of like horror comedy from the early 80s, and this was the only way I could get a hold of this, because sometimes I can say that you should probably avoid most of these like Spanish Blu-ray releases, because I believe it's been stated that they are kind of like bootlegs in general. So if you find another like official release of this one, I urge you to pick it up if you find it for a decent price. So it was just the fact that I couldn't get a hold of any other copies, so that's the reason why I picked it up. So yeah. And then you might ask yourself, why did you pick this one up? The only reason really is just because I'm such a big fan of TerrorVision, so yeah. And then, I'm not sure, I think I might have showed you this one before. This is the film called Remote Control with Kevin Dillon. Apparently it's signed by him as well, which is quite cool, so yeah. Apparently a limited edition, limited to 1,000 copies, so yeah, that's cool. Then we have yet another film with Vincent Price and John Carradine in it. And this one also has Donald Pleasence in it, and this is a film called Monster Club. I think I had this on DVD before, and I thought I saw the Blu-ray for pretty dirt cheap in general, so yeah, I thought, well, why not? Then we have this one. This is actually a Vinegar Syndrome. This should have been in the Vinegar Syndrome section of this, but yeah, whatever. This is Curse of the Screaming Dead, which I've heard really bad things about, but this one also comes with a film called... What is that other film called? It's Night of Horror is the other title. So Night of Horror was a film that came out in 1981, and then like just 1 or 2 years after that one, the same director I believe released Curse of the Screaming Dead, which was also known as it's like the Blood of the Cannibal Confederates or something. I'm not very sure. But I have seen A Night of Horror, and it's a pretty stupid and pretty bad film, but it has a strange vibe to it as well. It kind of feels like if Manos, The Hands of Fate was made in the 80s, then you get that film. But I've never seen Curse of the Screaming Dead before, so kind of looking forward to see how bad or how good that film is. Then we have a film called The Other. This is released by Eureka. I believe it's a British film. I could be totally wrong about that, so don't quote me on that, but yeah, The Other. Then we have some, this has to be Indonesian, I believe. It does not say, yeah, Indonesian film. This is another one which was limited. I'm not really sure how many copies they made of this, but Special Silencers. And I do believe this was released on VHS before, so yeah. Then we have a film which I have seen before, and I remember it being pretty fascinating actually, so Spider Labyrinth, right there. So yeah. Then we have yet another film that I have seen before, and I remember not caring too much for this one, but I think I rewatched it and then I liked it way more. And this was one of the few titles released by Slasher Classics Collection that I did not have in the collection before. So Blood-Sucking Pharaohs in Pittsburgh. Yeah, really like the cover art for that one as well. Then we have some more Indonesian stuff, I believe. This is a newer film though, 2009, and this film is called The Forbidden Door. Right there. Pretty disturbing looking cover art in my personal opinion. And then we have yet another one of those like weird Spanish releases. This is the film called Dead Bang with, what's his name, Don Johnson. Some action film from the late 80s, so decided to pick it up. Then we have a film which I have seen before, which I thought was pretty fun and action-packed, and this is a Italian film called Stunt Squad. Yeah. And then the last Blu-ray for this stack is the film called Fall, which was surprisingly good. So I can say this, if you do like Adam Green's film Frozen, this is a similar type of concept, but just imagine that but on this large, like really tall tower instead. So then you get this film. So if you're afraid of heights, do not watch this film. Or do watch it if you want a good horror experience. Now let's see, I think this is the... Is this the last stack? Just gonna double check if... Yeah, this is the last stack. So I've almost been mumbling for more than 1 hour now. So I may need to speed up a little bit. So I picked up this one, Henry, Portrait of Serial Killer, and its sequel is included in this one as well. So Henry Part 2. Obviously the first one is such an amazing film. That's still my favorite serial killer film of all time. The sequel is interesting, it's quite good, but it's nowhere near as good as the first one, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So, but if you do like serial killer films in general, go check these ones out. I usually say I never double dip on films in general if I already have them on DVD or something, but I'm such a big fan of this film, so I thought, well, why not? Then we have a film which I didn't even know had a Blu-ray release, but this is a German release of the film called Gold Raiders. I had this on VHS before. This one has Robert Ginty in it, so that's another reason why I wanted to pick it up. So yeah. Now let's see here. Then we have another film released by Eureka, yet another film that I've been wanting to get a hold of. This is directed by Sion Sono, and the film is called Tag. Right there. Released by Eureka. I'm not really sure. I think that might be out of print at this point. Then we have, this is the only Code Red release for this update video, but the film is called The Devil's Express. Yeah, some sort of weird action horror type film from the 70s, yeah. Then we have this is the only Saturn score title for this update video, and the film is called Ravage. Right there, so some shot on video action film. Then we have some Vinegar Syndrome releases, the first one being A Gun for Jennifer. Right there, with a slipcover, and there we have the alternate cover art right there. So yeah, and then we have a film with Frank Stallone called Savage Harbor, which I've heard really good things about. There we have the alternate cover art, not the alternate, but yeah, you know what I mean. Then we have a film which I have seen before, and I didn't care too much for it, but I thought for myself, well, might need to give it another chance because it's like a slasher film from the late 80s called Memorial Valley Massacre. Yeah, I think at some point this was like called like Sleepaway Camp 4 or something. I've heard some really strange stories about that, so I'm not really sure if that's true or not, but yeah. Then we have the Candy Snatchers. I think I might have had this before, but I mean, Vinegar Syndrome, they usually really deliver when it comes to special features, so yeah. The same can be said about this one, Blades. Killer Lawnmower film, more like golf film, I believe. Then this is another upgrade, you can say. I had this on a really like weird looking release before, but I kind of quite like this film actually. Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge. Yeah, I will release the last couple of films, I think, are rare releases, or the next two at least. So then we have The Incredible Shrinking Man. I had this before, but I believe that disc was just so damaged or something, so I just decided for myself, well, I need to get all of it somehow, so I ended up buying this other release, so yeah. Same thing can be said about the next one, which is another really fun, like action type horror, not horror film, but really entertaining action film from the 80s called The Annihilators. And this is directed by the same guy who directed the first Silent Night, Deadly Night film, so yeah. Then we have this one. I had this one before as well, but that DVD release, that Studio S release, was just garbage, let's be honest. So I picked up the Blu-ray release that they released for the film, so Death Weekend, which I think is known as something else as well, but I can't remember the title. And of course I do not think it says that on the back either, so yeah, whatever. Then the last one for this update video is Shocker on Blu-ray, and this one is included in one of those like retro type things, so that's another reason why I picked it up. And this is such an underrated Wes Craven film in my personal opinion. It's such a fun film. So yeah, Shocker. So yeah, that's it for this update video. This is probably going to be the longest update video I've ever done, but yeah, that's what happens when you've been hospitalized and other stuff goes in the way. So, but anyway, hope you enjoyed this update video, and the next one is probably going to be a top 5 of the month for the month of June probably. And I have some other stuff like planning like other like ranking videos or like top lists and stuff. And I'm also gonna make a collaboration video with one of my friends on YouTube, so whenever that comes up, I'm probably gonna leave a link to that as well. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this particular video, and see you next time. Bye bye.